and pans, kettles, sieves and watering cans, barbers for the countryman's attire. Saddles, crops and general tack, everything for the young girl's hack. Riding hats, they're up the back, they're squire. Tubs of nails in great supply, trusty scales that never lie. Step inside for DIY, there's lots to buy in the village general store. Balls of string and fancy netting, power tools to stop you sweating, dustbins, drill bits not forgetting, run. Wellies, thermals, woolly hats, calagas and welcome mats, scrapers, dusters, shoes and sugar soap. Model tractors, model sheep, model farmers, sow and reap. Step inside and take a peep, it's cheerful and cheap. Village General Store.
Bye.
Thank you.
And yet, even with all this activity, this is still a quiet rural community with a church and a village hall and an amateur dramatic group, and fields and farms and places to walk and air to breathe. If that huge industrial estate that's being built at Glastonbury had been spread between all the villages around here, would it have been a bad thing? Would it have destroyed the villages? I wouldn't think so. For one thing, it would have meant fewer cars in Glastonbury, fewer lorries, less disruption to the people of the town, less travelling to and from the villages, less pollution. It would have meant that the village shops would stand a chance of competing with the supermarkets, because more people would remain in the village and therefore do their shopping here and their work here. The lads and lasses of the village would learn the skills and, just as importantly, the attitudes of and from the older men and women. Men and women whose grandparents hardly ever went more than 5 miles from the village, let alone Mallorca or Torremolinos. What do the planners think of when they smoke their funny cigarettes and draw up their visions of acres of brick and concrete and tarmac? Am I the only one who thinks they're doing it wrong? What they certainly have got wrong is this.
This is the village of Ivybridge in Devon, or at least it was until a few years ago. And this is what the planners have done to it.
This village has been destroyed. There will be those who say that it's much better now than it was because it has a leisure centre and a swimming pool. It's got supermarkets and video shops. It's also got traffic problems yet again, even though the improved A38 took away the through traffic down to Plymouth and Cornwall. 30 years ago, this village had a population of 1,753. 20 years ago, it was just over 3,000. And today, it stands at almost 10,000. The village is now a vast sprawl of housing estates. And the frightening thing is that it was planned by somebody to be like this. There are no shops on these estates, no pubs, no churches, no community halls, no small integrated industries. Instead, just to the west, you've got this enormous industrial estate. Most of the people in Ivybridge don't work here. They work in Plymouth, 11 miles down the road. Ivybridge is now an overspill. It's a dump, literally a dump for the housing problems of Plymouth. This isn't planning, it's panic.
Oh Devon, oh Devon, oh Devon, look out. The planners of England are crawling about. Look out for the meadow before it's too late. The lorries are coming to tip aggregate. The boggers with bulldozers can hardly wait to build an enormous new housing estate. They'll dig up the pasture to house overspill and build shopping centres where once was a mill. The planners presumably think it looks great and measure success by the mess they create. They couldn't care less, they don't bother them mate. They don't have to live on this housing estate. There isn't a church and there isn't a pub. There isn't a centre, there isn't a hub. There's nowhere for people to communicate. Wherever will they hold their annual fete? Well, one thing's for certain, at any rate, it won't be on this bloody housing estate.
Nor do I think this is the answer. This is Corfe Castle in Dorset. The whole place is like a museum.
Well, it's more than that, or worse than that. It's like a film set, waiting for someone to shout action, but no one ever does. What does this place produce? Dorset cream teas, and that seems to be it. It has the oldest town hall in the country, but that houses a museum. No, really, I'd never have guessed. It has 3 pubs, but I bet there aren't many farmers in their arms. No one's going to spit in the fireplace in there, are they? It has a church, but that doesn't even produce any dead by the look of things. Either that, or they're all laid up for the winter. It has a National Trust shop.
It sells National Trust literature, National Trust mugs, National Trust recipes, and National Trust rugs. Not that I'm against the National Trust, far from it. But here it seems to add to the sterility of the place.
We shouldn't come here to look for our blueprint for today's villages. This isn't what village life was like at all. This is the shell of a village. Village life was bustle and industry. It was washing on the line. It was horse dung and sheep droppings in the street. It was kids kicking stones at next door's cat. It was wheelbarrows and hand carts and conversaziones. It was whist drives and parlour songs. Maybe I'm doing the people of Corfe an injustice. Maybe they have them still. Perhaps if I shout, action? No, I daren't. It's too quiet. Someone will get a cream tea in their lap.
In 3 centuries' time, for instance, when instead of flying, we're all beamed up by Scotty, and we go to an aircraft museum and walk through the carcasses of dead aeroplanes to feel what it was like to fly, we'll feel much the same as I do now walking through the village of Corfe Castle, trying to feel village life. Nothing. Nothing. No, I'm not recommending this as the village of the future.
The tiptoes on a shrine in stone, and tea and scone in this national mausoleum.
After all this whinging and whining about the way things are, just what is it that I'm proposing as a solution to all this? Well, for one, as I've been saying, the industrial estates could be divided out amongst the villages. The planners will no doubt argue that it's best to have them all in one place. That way you only make one journey to do your business or to purchase the items that you need.
How many times do you visit an industrial estate and go to 3 or 4 or 5 different companies? You don't go to buy bags of cement from the builder's merchant and in the same trip order your writing paper from the printer and then hire a carpet cleaner from the hire shop. You could, but you don't. But if that argument against these huge industrial estates isn't good enough for you, if you don't like the idea of small industrial units in your village, then here is where change must come. There is now absolutely no need at all for these office blocks to be in the town. Here is where the 21st century must really change the way we live.
These offices are stuffed full of modern technological machines which speak to other machines anywhere in the world in a fraction of a second. Anywhere in the world. These office blocks don't produce anything. They simply communicate with other office blocks.
The machines could be in your village, in a spare room or a small office block on an office estate, as opposed to an industrial estate. Here is the revolution to rival Toad's revolution. The telecommunications industry is taking away the need for the car. Not poop poop anymore, but bleep bleep.
Bye. This is a far better transport system than this. This is the revolution that will enable us to return to our simpler, less stressful, more peaceful way of life.
What follows looks like madness. Well, it is. At the moment, say 150 of us will get in our cars alone and drive 20 miles down the motorway or through the towns and cities to join the other 200s and 300s doing the same, in order to arrive at these office blocks, slap bang in the most congested place they could possibly be. On the way here, we've all used fossil fuels, we've all spent anything from half an hour to an hour polluting the atmosphere, we've all wasted that time, and we've all got to park somewhere. We then spend the day on the telephone, or faxing, or using electronic mailing systems, speaking to people across the country who've all done the same thing in order to speak to us. At the end of the day, we all get back in our cars alone, pollute the air, waste time, and jam the roads again. What a terrific way to live and to do business.
The Henley Forecasting Centre recently published a report of a teleworking analysis which found that using the technology that we have at the present moment, and if the infrastructure were provided, 7 million people who at the moment get in their cars and go to the office could work at home.
And by 1995, 10.5 million could do all or part of their work at home. That's in just 5 years' time. 10 million fewer cars on the roads every day. In 10 years, in 20 years, all this could join Corfe Castle as a tourist attraction. Of course, there may be a need for an office every now and then, but we could build small office complexes in towns that you could hire for the day for your board meeting or group talking. There'd be receptionists, there'd be catering facilities, and there'd be the communications machines. It would be just like home. But even that may not be necessary one day. With holograms, I could be in Chipping Norton, you could be in Rhyme Intrinsica, and the chairman could be in Ashby de la Zouche, and we could hold our board meeting as though we were all together in the same room. The horse lives. We should be able to live a simpler, less stressful life again. The 21st century technology should be used to help us achieve this. A simpler life doesn't necessarily mean sandals and candles. We'll have more time for the family, be able to watch little Jim's or Julia's nativity play instead of sitting in a traffic jam. Instead of the drive to work, a chat with our neighbours whilst taking the dog for a walk. A village hall management meeting instead of the cattle crush of the commuter train. If we were to realign our thinking away from major centres, we'd find that the village would become once more a caring, communicative community, not just a bedroom. And in doing so, the wear and tear on our nerves would become much more manageable. And above all, it would take the strain off the battlegrounds that are our cities. We don't need more roads, we need less movement.
Our great-grandchildren will probably look back on the 20th century as they would the Dark Ages. 2 world wars, the destruction of the rainforests, unbelievable pollution by blind Western expansionism. I'd say that we now have a chance to put it all right. Putting the village at the centre of our thinking is not a retrograde step. It's the way to the future. Come on, giddy up. Hello?
Horsey, horsey, don't you stop. Just let your feet go clippity-clop. Your tail go swish and the wheels go round. Giddy up. Giddy up. Giddy up. We're